In this video, I'm going to show you how to install a toilet. And if you're new to this channel, my name's Josh. This channel is all about DIY to save a ton of money. So be sure to subscribe, ring that bell so you get a notification every time I release a new video, and hammer that like button for me. That's all I ask in return for making this video. Installing a toilet isn't too difficult, but let me show you how to do it. I'd like to thank RWC for sponsoring this video. They are the manufacturer of the Sharp Bite fittings. More on that in just a bit. In case you didn't know, a closet flange needs to be installed before installing the toilet because that's what holds the toilet to the 3-inch or 4-inch pipe. Because this closet flange is actually going to go down inside of the 3-inch pipe, because we're stubbed up through concrete, that way I don't have to drill around the pipe in order to install the closet flange over the pipe. This is going to be a little bit easier. So I was a little concerned about the circumference of the hole being too small because it's going inside the pipe, but after further investigation, as you can see there, the hole coming out of the toilet's actually smaller than the diameter of this hole. So there's no problem there with using this for a toilet, just so you know. I'm going to show you why you want to make sure your flange isn't sticking up too high. If you tilt the toilet bowl and eyeball straight down the plane of where the toilet is sitting on the floor, as you can see, if this is up too high, you're going to be resting right on this flange, which probably isn't that big a deal, but you want to distribute the weight around the rim of the toilet if you can. So with this being down where it's supposed to be, we are still sitting flush with this toilet on the inside. So that's something to keep in mind. You definitely don't want your closet flange up too high. So just a little tip. Because this closet flange is going to be installed on top of the flooring, I want to cut this pipe down in order to be able to install the flooring. And also something very important is whenever concrete is finished up around a pipe that's stubbed up through the floor, typically there's going to be a little hump right around that pipe. So if you take a level, you want to check to see if there is a hump for starters. And if you do notice a hump, like right here, you can clearly see it rocking. There's definitely a hump of concrete right there. And on this side, it looks like it might not be as bad, but there's still a little hump there. So that's going to push that closet flange up a little bit too high. So because of that, I'm going to take a concrete grinder and grind that concrete down around that pipe so that the closet flange isn't sticking up too high. So I'm going to do that first, and of course I'm going to wear safety glasses and a respirator. So I'm first going to roughly cut the pipe off and then fine tune the cut after I get the concrete ground down. I'm using what's called a diamond blade on an angle grinder. It's the same diamond blade that I use to cut tile. The high spot is now removed from around that pipe. And if we use our level to check, as you can see, there is no rocking now. So that's what we want. And also you want to check this way as well. Just check all around the pipe. And again, no rocking. So that's good. We know the hump's gone. And it's really critical just around your toilet area. If there's some variation in the rest of the floor, it ain't that big a deal. So now we're going to install the floor before we install the toilet. I'm installing what's called vinyl plank flooring. The vinyl planks are waterproof, so they are perfect for a bathroom, and you can put these right on top of the concrete without any underlayment. The video of me installing this flooring is coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. Now that I got the flooring around the pipe installed, I can now install the closet flange. So I'm going to take my oscillating tool and now cut down below that flooring a little bit to give me a place to inset this flange. So I'm going to do that now, just simply using my oscillating tool to cut around the pipe. As I mentioned towards the beginning of this video, it's important that your closet flange does not stick up too high, so I'm using my oscillating tool to cut the pipe down to the correct height. I'm now going to install the closet flange directly into the 3-inch pipe like so. And when you install this, we need to make sure that we're equal distances from the wall. So if you measure it from here to here, as you can see, we got about 11.5 inches to the center of the hole. So we need to make sure this slot is in the center of the hole like so. You don't want to put these openings in the center of the hole like this, because if you measure right there and right there, that's going to be where your toilet flange bolts will go down through. And if they're not offset, it's going to come up out of here and it won't anchor. So you need to make sure that your flange bolts will slide back into here in order to hold the toilet into place. So I'm going to place a mark to right at the center of this slot, and I want to try to get that even. So I'm going to measure here now. So we got 11.5. So we want that installed right here. So I'm just going to put a little mark on the floor. So when I install it, I know to line this mark up with this mark. And we're now going to prime the outside of this closet flange and then the inside of this 3-inch pipe. So I'm going to first clean the inside of this pipe. And when you prime and glue this, definitely be careful not to drop your swab down into this hole because it's going to be almost impossible to retrieve. So be extra careful there. And it's important to have good ventilation here, so turn on the bathroom fan or crack a window while you're using cement and primer. And it's very important to have a piece of cardboard down so you don't get primer or glue on your good floor. Then prime the inside of this pipe. And now when I put the cement on the flange and in the pipe, I want to make sure I have the ability to turn it into place. Now I'm going to install the flange. And I'm going to line it up with the marks that I made right here to make sure we're spaced correctly off the wall, and hold it down. All right, I had that held down for 30 seconds. Now it's glued, and now as you can see, we are about 11.5 inches to the center of those flange slots. So that's going to work out really nice. I'm now going to install 1.5-inch tap cons into each one of these holes, and I'm going to drill it out with a 5/32 masonry bit and install this tighter to the concrete floor. That's all there is to installing the flange onto the concrete floor. It's very important to install your baseboard before installing your toilet because it's virtually impossible to get it nailed on correctly if you do so. Before dressing the water line for the toilet, I'm going to first turn the water off to the building in which the water is going to. So now we can cut the water line safely. Now that the water supply to this building is shut off, I'm going to drain the pressure out of the lines by cracking open this sink. So I'm going to keep this on until there is no longer water or pressure coming out of this sink faucet. Now that the water's off to the toilet supply line, because this is connected to that water line, I'm going to cut it and install my shark bite fitting. I never thought there would be a better fitting than the original shark bite fittings until I used the shark bite max fittings. With the shark bite max fittings, they have twice the burst pressure compared to the original shark bite. The shark bite max is also easier to push on to pipes, so the push to connect feature requires less force to makes it even easier to install than the original shark bites. They have a 25-year warranty. They connect to copper, PEX, CPVC, just like the original shark bites. And this is something that you're going to want to have in your plumbing kit for any install to water lines. The Shark Bite Max fittings are just like the original Shark Bites. They don't require any special tools to install them. So I'm going to show you the difference between the Shark Bite Max and the original Shark Bites up close. I have the Shark Bite Max and the original Shark Bite here together. As you can see at first glance, they look really similar, but there are some key differences. Both of these are 3/8 to 1/2-inch angled stops that are quarter turn, and they both are chrome finished. But if we take a look on the inside, this is the original Shark Bite. There is a PEX stiffener that is located inside of the fitting to where the Shark Bite Max does not require that and is not needed. So that's something that's going to be a key difference. But other than that, you can tell the build of the Shark Bite Max looks heavier and a little thicker. So the build of the original is not nearly as aggressive looking as the Max. And they both do serve as a similar purpose, but they are much different. And another difference to the Max versus the original Shark Bite is the Max, whenever you're pushing it onto a 1/2-inch pipe, it needs to be pushed in a total of 1 inch or the insertion depth. and the insertion depth of the original is 15/16. So about the same, but there is a little difference there. And with 3/4 inch fittings, the 3/4 inch needs to go on 1 1/4 compared to 1 1/8 of the original Shark Bite. We will be using the Shark Bite Max fitting. If you'd like more information about the Shark Bite Max fittings, check out their website. I'll put a link to their website in the description below. I like to install a pipe cover over my toilet water line. So I'm first going to cut this end off because this won't slide over the end like that. So I can slide this in order to make an accurate cut here. So I'm going to place something to catch water under the water pipe because there's going to be some water in here since we just shut the water off. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to dry that water up. I'm now going to slide the pipe cover over the PEX pipe. And this is going to give me an accurate measurement to cut the water pipe. Because I know the Shark Bite Max fitting needs to slide on 1 inch, I'm going to measure up 1 inch here, actually 1 inch and a little heavy, so I know there's plenty of room to slide the Shark Bite Max fitting onto the pipe. I'm now going to cut this with my ratchet pipe cutter. And these can be anchored to the wall with a drywall anchor, or if you have a block behind here to the block. But I'm just going to keep this floating on here, and because it looks just as good and it's not as permanent that way, and then that's going to slide over that to cover that up. I'm now going to install an angled stop 1/4 turn shutoff valve, and this is the Shark Bite Max, so it's going to push on the pipe much easier. So I'm going to just slide it right on the end of the pipe, and even if this is a little damp, this will go on here and seal just fine. So we're going to push it directly on it. And that didn't take much force at all, and it's a good tight fit right there. And the good thing about the Shark Bite Max fittings, or all of the Shark Bite fittings, you can pivot this how you want it, and it's very nice because in case you got to angle it one way or the other, you can. And just so you know, whenever the shutoff valve is facing away from the supply line, that means we are shut off. And when we turn the 1/4 turn towards the supply line, like so, this is when we're turned on. So we're going to want to keep this off for now until we turn our water back on and everything's hooked up correctly. Now that we addressed everything behind the toilet, we can now install the toilet. I'm now going to install what are called the flange bolts, and these bolts are going to slide right here in the flange. Now we need to take a tape measure and make sure they're off the wall equally here. So we're going to get these, let's say 11 and right about 11, just so they're close, about right there, because the center of the hole is around 11 inches off the baseboard since we installed it. So that should be pretty good there. And now, in order to keep those in place, we're going to place these over the top of the bolts. And they're just going to kind of go over them to secure them from moving too much. So like that, then one here. I'm now going to install the wax ring, and this can be installed on the toilet or on the closet flange, whichever one you want to place it on. So for this video, I'm going to place it on the closet flange because I made a video in the past where I placed it on the toilet first, just so you can see that there are options. So we're going to place that right in the center of that closet flange. So now we're ready to set the toilet onto the closet flange. All right, I got toilet bowl here, and I'm now simply going to place these bolts through the holes that are on each side of the toilet bowl. And it's going to be placed directly on top of that wax seal. So when we push it down, we're going to push it to where it pushes that wax ring down so that it makes a good seal right around that closet flange. All right, we're going to push our weight down on it just to make sure we got a good seal on that wax ring. And I'm now going to make sure we're square with the wall and that it's sitting where we want it. So I'm going to measure to the center of this hole. I got about 15 1/8. Measure to the end here. It's actually sitting about where we want it. So now I'm going to test and see if it rocks. And it does have a slight rock to it. So I'm going to end up putting some shims around it just to make sure we have a nice secure seat. I'm going to take a 2-foot level and a handful of shims. I'm going to place my level right here on the back, And as you can see, it does need shimmed up a little bit on this side in order to make it level, but it isn't that bad. And like I said, it has a slight rock to it. Again, not real bad, but enough to, I think, shim a little bit. And then if we place it right here, it needs just a little bit raised up in the front to get it to set level. So I'm going to do that with the shims, and I'll show you how I'm going to do it. In order to make this level, I'm going to take the shim and place it under this side and slide it in until we have a nice level toilet. All right, that's shimmed over really well. Now I'm going to shim it this way to make it level. I now have the toilet bowl sitting nice and level. Now I'm going to cut the shims. As you can see, I hit all the points around the toilet to make sure it's extra secure and stable. I like that. So I'm going to now take my utility knife and just score those shims and snap them off. The first piece that goes over the bolt is this. And as you can see, this end goes up. It says right on the top because your cap will snap onto this ultimately. I'm going to first place this side up over the bolt. Next is the washer. Then we place the nut onto the flange bolt. I'm now going to take a deep socket and tighten that up. You don't want to over tighten it. Just kind of snug it up well, not real hard. And then I'm going to do that to the other side. So that first, then our washer, then the nut. I'm now going to snug that up. And now tighten both sides up so that they're equally as snug. I'm now just going to take my hacksaw and cut those bolts off as close to that nut as I can. All right, now I'm going to snug that up a little bit if it works loose some. I'm now going to place the cap right over where we cut that bolt off. All right, and that's the finished product. And of course you would do the same thing to the bolt on the other side of the toilet. Now that the bottom's setting where we want it, we're now going to install the tank. Take note of the 3 holes in the back. That is where we're going to place the 3 holes that's in the bottom of the tank. And every model of toilet is going to be different. So it's not going to look just like this. Usually it's going to have different screw patterns, but in this particular model, this is how this one's installed. So we're going to set it right on the back of the toilet. I'm going to push the bolts down through the tank and then place the nut and washer onto those bolts. And I like to get all 3 started before tightening them up. So I just tighten them all by hand first. Now that they're all hand tightened on, I'm going to tighten them up with a socket. And again, just snug them up. You don't want to tighten these up really hard. And I like to snug them all up evenly, so I'm going to snug this one up, then go to the next. All 3 bolts are tightened up equally. We now have a nice seal between the tank and the base, and the seal is even and snug, and that's what you want. This is a 12-inch toilet supply line, and I'm just going to hand tighten it right to the bottom of the tank. I'm going to snug this up really well without stripping the threads. And you may need a different length than a 12-inch depending on the height of your water line. In order to install the 3/8 end onto this SharkBite fitting, we're going to take off this nut that comes on the SharkBite Max fittings, and then we're going to place the water supply line directly onto the SharkBite Max. Now I'm going to begin just by hand tightening on the 3/8 end of the supply line onto the SharkBite Max. And these SharkBite Max make this installation so easy. I'm now going to use this adjustable wrench to tighten up the 3/8 end of the supply line to the SharkBite Max fitting. And I do like to try to hold the SharkBite Max and tighten this up so I have more of a hold on it while I'm tightening it. Our toilet supply line is now connected to the toilet. What a breeze. Now that the tank is installed, I'm going to place the tank lid on to the tank, and it just sits right on top of it. I'm now going to install the toilet seat, and the toilet seat has 2 holes here in the back, and they're going to line up with these holes here, and we're going to set it here. This particular toilet seat has these plastic wing nuts that are going to go under this hole and face up, and then the bolt and washer is going to thread down through the toilet and into that wing nut. So I'm going to do that now. I'm now going to adjust the seat before I tighten those up to make sure it's sitting right with the toilet. And that looks pretty good there. I'm now going to take a Phillips screwdriver and just tighten those up. And then place the covers back over those bolts. This particular toilet seat has these little rubber cushions. So whenever you put the toilet seat down now, it makes that noise. So this is going to install right here. So it silenced them up a little bit. And this is also a soft close seat. So that's going to be a nice feature so it ain't so loud. So now you can barely hear it. And last but not least, I'm going to take 100% silicone and just caulk right here along this bottom. And I do not caulk at the very back next to the baseboard, so just in case there is a leak, the water will actually go out there and I'll see it. So very important. So I'm going to take a paper towel to clean around the rim here first. And I'm going to place a nice liberal bead right around that bottom. It's also helpful to have a damp rag or a piece of cardboard to keep your finger clean while you're installing the caulk. Now that the toilet is complete, I'm going to turn my shark bite shutoff valves back on, and we're going to test out the toilet. Now that the water's turned back on, I'm going to turn my shark bite max fitting to the on position. Now, as you can hear the water filling up the toilet. As soon as I turn the water on to any toilet, I always inspect for leaks immediately, just to make sure there's no water leaking right here around this connection first. And it looks like we have some discolored water because this is a new toilet. And I'm just going to feel around for any moisture. Now, once this toilet fills up all the way, I'm going to flush it and look for water around the bottom. All right, we just heard the tank shut the water off, so we're going to flush it here. All right, I didn't notice any water anywhere. And obviously after using the toilet off and on for a day or so, always inspect around the toilet and again under the tank, stuff like that, just to make sure you don't have a leak. One time I actually had a cracked tank and didn't know it. Kept finding water and it ended up being the tank had a small hair crack in the back. So again, you just never know with a new toilet. But as of right now, the installation looks like it worked out really well. If you would like to see how I installed this sink, check out this video. It'll help you out.